Simón Bolívar, often hailed as El Libertador, the Liberator, remains a towering figure in Latin American history, a military and political leader who spearheaded independence movements across Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, and Paraguay in the early 19th century. Born in Caracas, Venezuela in 1783, Bolívar's early life was marked by privilege and a European education, reflecting the colonial elite's aspirations. His father, Juan Vicente Bolívar, a wealthy plantation owner, D-twin Simón, was only 9 years old, leaving him a considerable inheritance and a sense of personal independence. Following his father's death, Bolívar's mother, Doña María Josefa Palacios, assumed guardianship and ensured he received a comprehensive education, encompassing languages, philosophy, and military strategy. Bolívar's exposure to Enlightenment ideals during his European travels, particularly in Spain and France, profoundly shaped his political thought and fueled his desire for liberty and self-governance. He witnessed firsthand the fervor of the French Revolution and its aftermath, observing the principles of republicanism and the rise and fall of Napoleon Bonaparte, a complex figure who both inspired and cautioned him. The loss of his beloved wife deeply affected Bolívar, though it did not deter him from his burgeoning revolutionary ambitions. Upon returning to Venezuela in 1810, Bolívar became actively involved in the movement for independence from Spanish rule. The Spanish colonial administration faced growing discontent among Creoles, people of Spanish descent born in the Americas, who desired greater political representation and economic autonomy. In 1810, a group of Caracas elites, including Bolívar, launched a successful revolution that ousted the Spanish viceroy and established the First Republic of Venezuela. However, the First Republic proved short-lived, as Spanish forces, reinforced by royalist supporters, quickly regained control of Venezuela in 1812. Bolívar escaped the defeat and fled to New Granada, present-day Colombia, where he regrouped and began planning a renewed campaign for independence. He formulated the decree of war to the death in 1813, a controversial measure that called for the execution of Spanish officials and royalist sympathizers, aiming to instill fear and demoralize the enemy. Bolívar returned to Venezuela in 1813 and, despite initial setbacks, managed to liberate Caracas and proclaim the Second Republic of Venezuela. His military leadership and strategic acumen began to earn him widespread recognition and popular acclaim. However, the Second Republic also faced internal divisions and external threats, and Bolívar realized the need for a more unified and enduring political structure. Recognizing the challenges of uniting Venezuela, Bolívar embarked on a daring expedition across the Andes Mountains in 1819, a feat of military logistics and endurance that remains legendary. The crossing was fraught with danger, including harsh weather conditions, disease, and hostile indigenous populations, but Bolívar's determination and the loyalty of his troops prevailed. Upon reaching New Granada, Bolívar's forces decisively defeated the Spanish army at the Battle of Boyacá on August 7, 1819, effectively securing independence for both Venezuela and New Granada. The victory at Boyacá marked a turning point in the Latin American independence movements and solidified Bolívar's position as the leading figure in the struggle against Spanish rule. Bolívar then orchestrated the creation of Gran Colombia, a short-lived republic encompassing present-day Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, and Panama, aiming to unite the newly liberated territories under a single government. His vision of a unified Latin America was driven by a desire to prevent the fragmentation of the region into smaller, vulnerable states susceptible to European intervention. He continued his military campaigns, liberating Ecuador from Spanish control in 1822 and defeating the royalist forces in Peru in 1824 at the Battle of Ayacucho. the decisive battle of the Peruvian War of Independence. The victory at Ayacucho effectively ended Spanish colonial rule in South America, although pockets of resistance persisted for several years. Bolívar was hailed as the Liberator of South America and became a symbol of freedom and independence across the region. He convened the Congress of Panama in 1826, an attempt to establish a permanent confederation of Latin American states, but the Congress proved divisive and ultimately failed to achieve its goals. Internal political rivalries, regional differences, and the lingering influence of conservative forces undermined Bolívar's grand vision for a unified Latin America. The breakup of Gran Colombia in 1830, fueled by separatist movements and political instability, marked a profound disappointment for Bolívar, who had dedicated his life to the ideal of Latin American unity. As Gran Colombia disintegrated, Bolívar faced increasing opposition and a growing sense of isolation, culminating in a military coup in Colombia in 1828 that forced him into exile. Despite his political setbacks, Bolívar remained a revered figure, though his reputation was increasingly tarnished by accusations of authoritarianism and the failures of his grand political schemes. Bolívar's death marked the end of an era in Latin American history, but his legacy as the liberator continued to inspire generations of Latin Americans. His writings, particularly his letter from Jamaica, provide invaluable insights into his political thought and his vision for a free and independent Latin America. Though his political ideals were not fully realized, Bolívar's role in the independence movements of South America remains undeniable, and his name is synonymous with freedom, courage, and the pursuit of self-determination.